If you want to learn how to make this beautiful dress with the bell sleeve, then you need to watch this video to the end. I'll be making use of my Ankara fabric, my lining, my gum stay, my tape, my scissors, my ruler, and my chalk. Let's get started now. I'll drop a link in the description box so you can get to know how to draft a princess armhole bustier from the beginning to the end. In this video, I'll just show you, make a quick one on how to draft a bustier without a pattern, like a freehand method. So here I'm just taking my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches, and I'm not going to do the normal darts, and I'm just going to go straight. I'll dive in straight to the point. So what I'll be working with for the person's bust is 2.5 inches. If you watch the video in the description, you will understand what I'm talking about. I'm using 2.5 inches to tighten her underbust. So for the center front, I just went in by 1/2 inch, and as you can see, and the rest 2 inches I took it out to the other side, and I'm going to connect my lines now, just like that. So next I'm going to use my free hand to curve this. If you want to make use of your curve, you're totally free, but in this video I'm doing everything freehand method for those that don't have this curve. So this is exactly what I'm doing. You can see the curves are already out, so you don't always need a curve, but making use of a curve will make your work look neater and professional too. So now I'm just going to measure it out. It is exactly the 2.5 inches I wanted to work with. So now I'm moving over to the shoulder. The shoulder I'm working with is 15 inches. Divided by 2 is 7.5, and I added another 1/2 inch. So I'm making use of 8.5 inch for the armhole. The bust is 36. You can just do it whichever way you like. So I'm just going to curve it. Like I said, this video, it is freehand method throughout. So do not worry yourself if you don't have a curve. So I'm just going to go 1/2 inch as in the line, like you can see in this picture. So I'm trying to talk very fast because of the video. So I'm just going to go in by 3 inches for the neckline, and depth is also 3 inches. So I'm just going to curve with my hand. Oh god, freehand method from beginning to end. I'm not making use of any curve. So if you really want to know how to make use of just a freehand without curve, and you want a neat work, then watch this video to the end. So I'm just going to go in by 1/2 inch from my armhole to get my shoulder slant. I use 1.5 inch for that. So now we're going to go over to bringing out the armhole princess dart with the same freehand method, as you can see. So first of all, I just went ahead to take my measurements, 36 inches for the bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches. So here I'm working with 30 inches divided by 4 is 7.5, and I'm going to take the 7.5, but then I'm going to bring out the measurements I used for the bust, for the underbust tightening, and I'll bring it out before I add my original seam allowance. I explained every single detail in the video in the description box, so make sure you watch it. So now I'm just going to divide the armhole measurement by 2. This is exactly what I'm doing to get my armhole dart. I'm just going to measure, divide it by 2, and I'll be working with that. I'll mark the half, the middle, and I'll go I'm going to connect it to the line. Then I'll go 1 inch on each side, as you can see. 1 inch on this side and 1 inch on the other side. I'm going to connect it to the bust point. That's exactly what I've done. Very easy. So now I'm adding 1/2 inch here for this part. This is very tricky. You want to add this part so that when you're joining your princess armhole dart, you won't be having any shortage, and I will show you how at the end. So I'm just going to cut that. Remember to add to leave that part you added now, so you don't get any shortage. I'm just going to cut everything out now, then I will show you what I mean by adding extra 1/2 inch to your armhole, so that you won't have any. That's it. I'm going to pin it down so you see what I'm talking about. If you don't add the 1/2 inch, you'll be having shortages, but when you add it, you're good to go. That's it. So this is the back pattern. I just went ahead to draft everything out. To get a detailed pattern drafting, make sure you watch that video, although you can still use it for your freehand. Everything I did in this video was totally and completely freehand. So I'm just going to cut it out now like this. I added some inches and the side allowance. I didn't use exactly what I had, just to be on the safe side. So I actually forgot to add the armhole, and it will affect me later. Make sure you don't make that mistake too. So now I'm going to cut everything out on my lining. I'm just trying to be very fast so everything can enter, it can contain in this video. So now we are through with our upper body, so we're going to the skirt part now. This is a gown actually. So first of all, I just went ahead to mark out the what I used for my half length, 17 inches, and the length of the gown is 35. So I placed my 13 inches on the top of the material, on the fabric, as you can see, and I'm measuring out my 35 inches, which is the gown length. And what I have at the bottom was, what I had at the bottom for my folding allowance was then 3.5. So now I'm just going to straighten it out because I noticed it wasn't cut straight, so I just had to straighten it out before taking my other measurement. So now I'll be making use of 8 inches for the hip to get my hip line. I'll be making use of 8 inches. In this video, I'll be making use of the hip allocation method. I'm not making use of the basic skirt method. So if that's what you're interested in, then keep on watching. Watch the end to see how I do my hip allocation method. So this time around, you're not dividing your hip measurement by 4. First of all, you will divide it by 2. So this one I'm working with here is 43 inches. Divided by 2 is 21.5, as in 21 and half. 21.5. That's what I was working with. So divided by 2 is 21.5, and that's what I'll be using for the skirt for the front pattern. After dividing it by 2, which is 21.5, you want to minus 1.5 inch if the person is very curvy at the back. But if the person is not that curvy, you just minus 1 inch, so you'll be left with 20.5. But in this case, the person's measurement I'm working, she's very, she has that curve as her bum. So I'm making use of 1.5 inch and minus 1.5 inch from the front measurement. That is, divide your hip measurement by 4. Since for you not to get confused, divide your hip measurement by 4 and minus 1.5 if the person is curvy. So that's exactly what I did, and I was left with 20 inches. 20 inches divided by 4 is 10, and that's what I'll be using for my hip. So first of all, I worked with the under bust measurement, that is the waist measurement, which was 30 divided by 4. I had 7.5. So now I'm going to work with 10 inches for the hip. Normally it's supposed to be 10.5, but I'm working with 10 because I'm making use of the hip allocation method. Remember to minus 1 inch or 1.5 inch from your front pattern, because the front and the back are not supposed to be the same, since you want to have that curve at the back. So I just took my measurement, then I went down and took the same measurement, but this time around I minus 2 inches to have that pencil shape. So I'm just going to connect everything now together. Remember, freehand, I'm not making use of even my ruler, so I'm just going to connect it like that. You can see how curvy it is because I'm not making use of that. I'm not going to add any dart allowance and then make that at the end. No, hip allocation method and dartless skirt. So I just went ahead to make a straight line at the down, so it is not completely straight, so that when joining it you won't have issues. That's what you can see there. I just added a bit, like half inch allowance, so we'll get a straight something. Remember, you divide your hip measurement by 2 minus your 1 inch or your 1.5 inch. I think I'll make a well-detailed video on this hip allocation method next time. Maybe after this tutorial, that will be the next thing I'll be working on. So you get a well-detailed video on how to work with your hip allocation method. So I'm just going to cut it out now and move over to the back. That's where the main work is, because that 1.5 inch we minus from the front measurement, we are going to add it to the back this time around. We are not throwing it away. No, just keep it somewhere. Just keep it somewhere. We'll be adding it to the back measurement. We're not throwing it away. It is not a waste. It is useful. So now I folded my fabric and I'll be cutting out my back. I just placed my front pattern on my front piece on the back. But first of all, I just went ahead to minus 1/2 inch from the front, and I'll be slanting it. I'll be cutting that part out, yes, to avoid this bulginess at the front. So I'm just going to cut it out now before I move over to drafting out the back, the back piece of the skirt. So I've done that, I've cut it out to avoid that bulginess, like I said. So this is it. When you're working with a hip allocation method, you will notice like it's easy. Life is easy. You don't have to start taking your darts first of all before making your dress. No, you just go straight to the point and make your dress. So now you can say I left enough allowance at the front. I didn't leave just for my zip. I left 4 inches, and watch what I'll be doing. Remember the 1.5 we left from the front measurement? I'll be adding it to the zipper, as in the center back, the place our skirt is, our zipper is supposed to be normally. But first of all, I just went ahead to trace the front pattern on the back, and I made a straight line, which is how it's supposed to be normally. Sorry, I'm stammering. I'm just trying to like meet up with the video. So I'm just going to connect my hip line, and then the 1.5 measurements we minus from the front, I'm going to add it back to this back. It is not a waist, just to the hip, just to the hip. At first I wanted to use my ruler, then I remembered I needed a curve, and I'm not working with curves this time around, freehand. So that's exactly what I'm doing now. I just added that 1.5 minus from the front to the back, but then I'm going to make a straight line. Just make it in a way you know it's curved. Though that front part towards it down, the folding allowance, I'm not supposed to make it straight. I was supposed to do it exactly the way I did it on the other side, but I forgot, and it's going to affect me though, but I know how to handle it. So this is how the hip allocation method looks like. I'm going to add my zipper allowance now, which is 1.5 inch. Very easy, very simple, straight to the point, no stress. You don't have to start adding your darts again. So please, this is it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. So I'm just going to cut this out now. Like, this is it. Remember to, if you don't understand, just go back, watch the video over and over and over again to get more understanding of what I explained. I will make a more detailed video though. Now I'm just going to notch my hip line and my folding allowance, so I know the side when I'm working with it. So I'm just going to cut out my lining, and that I've already done here. I just folded my skirt piece and I placed it on the lining, because that's my folding allowance. I don't have to start cutting the lining exactly the same thing again. So now is the time for our bell sleeve or our trumpet sleeve, and I'm working with 29 inches, though I cut it out as 30 inches, so that when I fold it at the end and when I join it, I'll be left with 29 or 20. So just first of all use 2 inches for my folding allowance. You can see how wide it is at the bottom area. That's exactly how it should be if you want to make a bell sleeve. You should make it that wide, like that wide, if you want something like what you see in the picture. So I'm just going to take my 30 inches from the folding allowance. That's exactly what I've done here, and I've connected my line. So I'm just going to use my free hand to draft out my sleeve on my fabric. Just watch what I'll be doing. Very easy. So just went ahead to make a curve at the top, like that. Just do it like that till you get your desired sleeve. So I did it, so I got it, and then I took my measurements. I wasn't so sure of the measurement to use yet, because I've not made my dress to know the size of the sleeve, but I just made sure I was working with something extra. I used 12 inches, like 12 inches for the curve, and I added 1 extra inch. That's not something to worry about. Just make sure you have extra if you're familiar with the size of your sleeves normally. So now I'm just going to connect it down. So I'm just going to connect it and cut it out, and that's all for the sleeve. Like I said, make sure you're working with enough for the sleeve. If you're familiar with the size of the sleeve you're working with, you can just measure the armhole down there before. And if you notice I say added more, I don't want to hear any story that touches the heart. Just went ahead to cut it, and that is all. I'm just going to place it on my lining and cut it out the way I did for the skirts, minus the folding allowance and then cut it out direct. And that's everything for this video. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I love you. See you on my next video. Bye. This is it. Actually, I was thinking the video was over, so just went ahead to add my lining, added some allowances though, and that's it. Bye.